Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode of Let's Talk About It. We are back with another NBA mock draft. This is going to be our second NBA mock draft that we have done on this channel. So going into it, I feel like a lot of things have changed with my mindset in terms of who is being drafted at what team, depending on going into the mindset of teams, like what do they need, what are they thinking during the draft process, what happens if they think a guy's going to fall, but some team takes a reach, and then the guy they thought was going to be there isn't there anymore. Like, just kind of going in more depth on that. So I feel like this mock compared to the first one is going to be a lot different. I feel like just looking more into what I've seen from Combine and kind of looking at other mock drafts across the way and kind of doing more research and kind of looking at what I do think is going to happen, because the draft can be a place where it may seem set in stone. Like, it may just seem like, oh, this team should get this guy, but a team can go in a completely different direction from just what I've seen in past years during the draft. And with this kind of draft where there is no really set in stone kind of number one, number two, number three overall pick, it could kind of go either way. I think it's going to be very interesting to see, and I do think this mock draft I do have to be a little bit different than the first one. So we're still going to do no trades in this one. Kind of still trying to think of how I've just dropped one trade idea for both East and the Western Conference, but still kind of feeling out how it would probably go on draft night. And I feel like that's gonna be more of a complex upload for me for sure. Going in and thinking about trading picks and everything else like that for what there could be, like the Houston Rockets, who are a team who are possibly in the realm of trading the third overall pick. You can see a team like Washington possibly trade down. You never know what Atlanta is going to do with number one. So that trade mock draft will come in the near future. We're still in the NBA Finals right now, and then we still have a couple weeks until the NBA draft and then free agency getting into it. But before we get into this mock draft, make sure you leave a like on the video. It helps a ton if you're an audio listener. I think it won't be too hard to follow along. I will have a graphic of this mock draft posted on our socials on Twitter or X, IG. So we're going to be diving right into number one overall pick, which I do have to be the same. I do think Alex Sarr is just the number one pick here. I think this is the most for sure thing. I think he's NBA ready for what the Hawks need. They need somebody who can replace that Clint Capella role, somebody who can hopefully unlock the full potential of a Jalen Johnson in that front court as well. Alex Sarr coming into the NBA, the offense might not be all the way there, but playing with a point guard and playmaker like Trae Young could definitely help. And also with the defensive upside that he has coming in right away is something that the Hawks could desperately need, because I just feel like he's a way more versatile defender than a Clint Capella and even a Nneka Okongwu, just because of his size and his length compared to Nneka Okongwu, who's really more of an undersized five. But with the second overall pick, went back and forth on it. I had Nikola Topic going to the Washington Wizards to get their point guard of the future, but with the partially torn ACL coming out of the Combine, I feel like he is going to fall and he is going to slide. Not saying it's going to completely hinder his draft stock in general. I still think he's going to go in the lottery, but that is a partially torn ACL for a guy that is coming from overseas. I feel like has a lot of question marks still, even though he is a really good prospect. I still feel like in a draft class where there is somebody that could be there for Washington that I feel like could just fit perfectly with them depending on what they do this offseason. I got them going Zachary Ricochet for this second overall pick. I had him going to the San Antonio Spurs in the last mock, but I just feel like with the Nikola Topic injury, I feel like this is a perfect spot for him to go, especially when I do anticipate them moving off from Kyle Kuzma. Kind of opens up some spots in that front court for them to really develop him, because he's great and he's going to develop the best when he's off the ball. And I can still feel like Jordan Poole, you're probably going to get a better year from him because you can't get worse than last year. And they do have another pick in this first round, which I do have them addressing that point guard need, trying to get another playmaker in there to set up a Jordan Poole, a Ricochet, a Denny Abdia, Bilal. So looking at that, we're going on to the Rockets, who are in an interesting position. In both of my trade videos that I just did, I had the Rockets trading the third overall pick. I just think it makes sense. They're kind of in the market to go star hunting, with Jalen Green looking to be extended and pairing him with that third overall pick. You still have a plethora of picks to go through as well from the Brooklyn Nets that are very, very valuable. So looking at this, I mean, I've seen Reed Shepherd, I've seen some Buzelis, But I feel like they just need kind of a connecting piece. I think they need a connecting piece to where if they do end up drafting here, I still have it being Reed Sheppard. I still have it being Reed Sheppard. I think he's just the perfect connecting piece on this team right now. I see Buzelis here, but they are so loaded in that forward position. Like looking at Tari Eason, still there, super young, still has 2 more years left. Cam Whitmore, who was a steal of the draft for them last year, still have Jayshawn Tate in that small forward room. Still have Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith, and Dylan Brooks. So you have a lot of forwards that can play the 3 or the 4. So where I feel like Buzelis kind of would be lost in the rotation and wouldn't really get a chance to really develop on Houston. But when you're looking at a Reed Sheppard, I mean, yeah, he would be behind Jalen Green, but his shooting ability on this Houston team, like when you're looking at the roster, they don't really have any real knockdown shooters like I think Reed Sheppard can be in the NBA. So looking at that, I think I still have to go Reed Sheppard here to Houston if they do end up keeping this pick. And now we're into San Antonio Spurs. With this, I still see Nikola Topic, but I do think he ends up falling. I still do. I think this San Antonio Spurs team is looking for more of a scoring punch. I see Rob Dillingham. I've seen that mocked a lot. I've seen Stephon Castle. I'm going to end up going with Stephon Castle. I think his height and his versatility defensively, it's huge for the San Antonio Spurs team and what they want to do, especially when we've heard from his camp that he wants to be kind of the lead guard. And I feel like he's not going to be the kind of player that you build your franchise around, but I feel like him next to a Wemby and a Devin Vassell in San Antonio could be a great pick, especially when they have 2 top 10 picks in this year's draft. They could definitely look to add a Stephon Castle who can do a little bit of everything from that guard spot, and I think the San Antonio Spurs could definitely use that, especially with his height too. Now we're on to the Detroit Pistons. Interesting spot again. Could use... I've seen... this is where I've mainly seen Buzelis go. But I feel like they might... It's so interesting. I've seen a lot of Buzelis. I've seen Ron Holland. Nikola Topic doesn't make sense here, and even though he's still on the board, God, I feel like they just need more scoring. I understand the upside in Buzelis and Ron Holland for the future, but they just can't. When I'm looking at the problems with this team, they have no real scoring. Dern's not really scoring that much for you. Cade is really your only go-to guy that can really get a bucket on his own, and even Asar Thompson's still years away from that, consistently doing that, in my opinion. And then you have Jaden Ivey, who was still really your second best scorer. So I really feel like they need scoring here. It might be a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to go with Dalton Knecht, somebody that is going to come into the NBA and be ready to score right away. I just feel like they just lack that scoring, and there's so much pressure on Cade to where, if you went a Ron Holland or even mainly a Buzelis, where, he's going to come in and, I think he might struggle a little bit, especially with how dysfunctional the Pistons are right now. I feel like Dalton Knecht could give them a real solid guy at that 3 spot that can just score. I feel like when I look at the Pistons teams, the main reason why they struggle is just because they have one shot creator, and that's only really Cade Cunningham. Jaden Ivey can be inconsistent at times. I don't think Asar Thompson is there yet, especially on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to his shooting and his spacing. Give Cade Cunningham some scoring help and go get Dalton Knecht, somebody who can space the floor, create his own shot, play off of Cade Cunningham really well, move without the ball really well, and a Monty Williams-led offensive system. I think it just makes sense there. And now we get to the 6th overall pick with the Charlotte Hornets. Looking at this team, you're looking for a piece that can complement LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller perfectly. And I think this is where you go Buzelis. I think you go a high upside guy that has a lot of the makings to really be able to play really well off the ball and in transition, where I think he can thrive next to a LaMelo and a Brandon Miller. I want to go Ron Holland here too, but I think I'm going to go Buzelis. I think Buzelis can be that third guy with next to a LaMelo, next to a Brandon Miller, that can be that third scoring option, especially not maybe in year 1, but maybe down the line in the future. I feel like him in transition with LaMelo Ball running the break could be a very fun thing to see in Charlotte. Now with the Pistons with their first pick, 7th overall pick, team that has a little bit of everything already. That guard room is kind of deep. You don't know what they're going to do with Simons. I assume Malcolm Brogdon will be traded this offseason. I've seen some Donovan Clingan mocks, but I'm you still have Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton. and I don't feel like DeAndre Ayton is in a position to where he's going to gain a lot of value in the trade market. I do like Clean as a prospect, but maybe I just don't like the fit with him in Portland just at this moment, because I feel like they're in a position where they could probably take a guy with a little bit more upside. But that's just me. But that's where I have a guy like Cody Williams going. Guy with a ton of upside. They're definitely going to need some more wing depth. When you're looking at their wing depth, they don't really have a ton of scoring. I feel like he can be a perfect guy. He has defensive upside next to a Scoot Henderson, and even when they do decide to move off of Jeremy Grant, if that happens, he can kind of fill that void. But just fitting him in next to a Simons, I feel like Cody Williams is a perfect position for the Portland Trailblazers to take a guy with a ton of upside, because they're not looking to be good next year or maybe even the year after. But down the line, I feel like Cody Williams and Scoot Henderson next to a Shaedon Sharpe could be a nasty big three down the line in the future. So now going on to the Spurs with their 8th overall pick. So you go Stephon Castle. I've seen Rob Dillingham go here as well. Interesting spot, because Keldon Johnson is a guy who I feel like is the odd man out and could be traded and could be moved. So do they look to like possibly replace somebody like him with somebody like a Ron Holland? Somebody that could do a little bit of everything for you. So you still have Trey Jones. Stephon Castle can kind of fit that Devin Vassell. Your backcourt's kind of fine. They could really use another wing here. Or you can go get your front court solidified with a Donovan Clingan next to a Wemby. If you want to experiment with Wemby at the 4. Still see Devin Carter down here. I'm going to go Ron Holland. A forward that can do a little bit of everything, and I do feel like Keldon Johnson is going to be on the move this offseason. I feel like he's one of the odd men out, and I feel like Ron Holland can give you a little bit of everything, can be able to play multiple positions, and play really well off of Wemby. So now, Memphis. Memphis. They're in a time where they could really compete now. I just still feel like this is just the home run pick for them in Donovan Clingan. I think this is the perfect home run pick for them. You already have spacing in Triple J that can play the 4 or the 5. They're ready to win now. He's just coming off winning back-to-back national championships. He's already a phenomenal rim protector coming in day one next to Triple J. He's a great rebounder, and someone who in Triple J isn't the best rebounder. I feel like getting that front court solidified with just a big body and Donovan Clingan that can really protect the rim can really, I feel like, have a lot of Walker Kessler year one with how good Walker Kessler was year one. I feel like he can come in and make a huge impact on Memphis right away, and especially because I feel like they got a lot of tweeners, especially in that 4 and 5 realm, because I like Brandon Clark, but he's more of a 4. He's an undersized 5. Even Xavier Tillman, when they had him, was more of a undersized 5 as well. So I feel like getting a real 7-1 body next to Triple J is going to really lock down that paint, especially really solidify that front court for the future. Now we're going into the Utah Jazz, where mixed bag. I like Keontae George. I think Keontae George is more of a 2 in my opinion. I see a lot more of a Jordan Clarkson in him, being able to play the 2, possibly come off the bench for you with his scoring and shot creating ability. I don't really see him being a number 1, especially in terms of what Utah has already. They're up in the air about what they're going to do about Lauri Markkanen. Their front court is really solidified. This is where I have Nikola Topic sliding to, just with the partially torn ACL. And if you're looking at a Utah Jazz team, they would be perfectly fine and suitable for Nikola Topic to maybe not be able to start the year right away coming off the injury, because you still have a Colin Sexton and a Keontae George in that backcourt. So when you have Nikola Topic, when he is healthy to play, I feel like Utah has no problem with kind of having him take a little slower paced route to getting on the court, because you have Colin Sexton already still running that point guard spot, and he's just coming off of a really good year. Now we're into the Chicago Bulls. They look like they should go big here, but you still have Vucevic on 2 years left on his deal. Your guard room is loaded, but they need a forward. They need wing depth. You don't know what they're going to do with DeMar DeRozan or Patrick Williams or even a Zach LaVine in that matter. Lonzo Ball looks like he's on pace to be coming back at the start of the year from his own words. Kobe White, Caruso still on the team. I would assume they still have a lot of guards. I really don't feel like they need to go the guard route, but when you're looking at this 3 and 4 position, even if you bring DeMar and Patrick Williams back, they need to definitely add some depth at that position. It's interesting because a lot of these guys, you see Saloon right here, but I feel like they don't really go that route. I feel like they possibly go somebody a little bit more NBA ready at this point in time. I really like Tristan da Silva, somebody who can do everything to really help the development of Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, even Lonzo Ball at this point. I do like Kel'el Ware here, but I feel like they're in a position now where you're completely fine if you just bring Drummond back and have Vucevic still, because you don't want to go draft a guy and then you have him, say you bring these Drummond back, and then he's like getting third reps. I feel like they can really use a forward here. It might be a little bit of a reach, but because I feel like this would be a perfect spot for Dalton Connect. I just don't feel like with his scoring ability, he slides all the way to Chicago. I'm going to end up going Tristan da Silva here. Might be a little bit of a reach because he's an older player, but I feel like he is a perfect fit for the Bulls. They need somebody who can do a little bit of everything depending on what they do this offseason with DeMar and Patrick Williams at that 3 and that 4 spot that can fit next to a Kobe White and be able to space the floor as well. He's a really Swiss Army knife do-it-all kind of guy that can play the 3 or the 4 for you. OKC, another interesting position. I don't think they're going to take anybody with some huge, crazy upside here. But I feel like OKC's whole thing is about spacing, right? I feel like their entire stick is about spacing the floor and being able to do a little bit of everything. I feel like their bench is solid. I feel like you have great guards coming off of your bench. It's the center position that needs work. It's really this front court position. I like Kendrick Williams, but I feel like they can go into a different direction. It depends. Like, do you like Chet at the 4 or the 5? Do you want to bring in an experiment with Chet at the 4 more so? Just came out like the other day about them really being interested in Isaiah Hartenstein and free agency, which they definitely will have the cap space to go out and get somebody like Hartenstein from the Knicks because they'll be able to pay him more. Josh Giddey's probably on the move this offseason as well. They could possibly move this pick as well, depending on what they could get for Josh Giddey. But I have them taking some size here, and I feel like their whole thing is spacing. I see Kyle Filipowski here, but I just feel like Tyler Smith has more upside, and I feel like he fits OKC more so with what they want to do with his spacing and his shooting ability. A little bit raw coming in, but when you already have a Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams kind of in that front court, and you say you add an Isaiah Hartenstein in free agency, you're not looking at Jalen Williams to kind of really be your starter at all. You're kind of looking for him to come off the bench and still give you kind of that spacing that Chet can provide with you and be able to run the floor, and I feel like he's a perfect fit with OKC rather than Kyle Filipowski, who is somebody who is less versatile for sure, and I feel like Jalen Smith coming out is just a way better shooter, or Tyler Smith coming out is just a way better shooter from 3 at this point. Looking at the Kings, possibly losing Malik Monk, probably going to happen. I feel like a team is definitely going to overpay for him, possibly like the Orlando Magic. I like that fit there. But looking at this, they need a scoring punch. Like, if they lose Malik Monk, like, who is that secondary ball handler next to De'Aaron Fox? Like, it's not Kevin Huerter, it's not Harrison Barnes. I don't think Keegan Murray's at that point where he's taking that step where he's, like, really initiating offense quite yet. Davion Mitchell's more of like a pest defender off your bench at this point with how he's panned out. So I feel like they definitely need to go guard here. Especially with Malik Monk possibly being out of the door this offseason. Like, you still have a Rob Dillingham here. I've had him sliding. I just don't really feel like his fit is with some of these teams that are picking at this point. Like, there are a lot of guard-loaded teams in the top end of this draft, which is why you see Isaiah Collier, Rob Dillingham, Jacoby Walter. But I feel like they can kind of get that same kind of mold that they have gotten from Malik Monk and a Rob Dillingham. So I got Rob Dillingham sliding to the Sacramento Kings at 13. I feel like he can kind of give you a lot of what Malik Monk was giving you off that bench, giving you another ball handling shot creator. Because I feel like with the Kings and how they operate, like, you can have Rob Dillingham come off the bench in lineups where Fox and Sabonis minutes are split, and I feel like he's somebody who can play off of Sabonis, and really how Sabonis is the playmaker when De'Aaron Fox is out of the game, and even when he's in the game and playing off of him. I feel like Rob Dillingham can come off the bench and really just look to get his, which I feel like that's when he's at his best. I don't really feel like he's more of a 1. I feel like he's the perfect Malik Monk comparison, in my opinion. I think he is somebody who has the ability and ball handling to play the 1, but when he's looking to be aggressive and get his own shot, that's what you want out of a Rob Dillingham. I feel like he can kind of come in and replace that Malik Monk role perfectly off that bench for Sacramento. And this mock, I do have him sliding. I just feel like with some of the stuff I've heard and the way I feel like the NBA thinks he's an undersized guard that is really looking as like a shot creator, a tweener, and he's a little bit undersized for being 6'1", and quotes, like, I feel like he still has a ton of upside ability, and I feel like Malik Monk is a great comparison. He can come in and fill that role in Sacramento. 14th overall pick going to Portland. Went Cody Williams at the 7th pick. They're a team where I feel like this is where they take an upside pick in Saloon. Somebody who has a ton of upside, who can really fit in that 3 and 4, and they can really build out a rotation with a backing up Jeremy Grant. When you're looking at that depth chart, like, they don't really have anything outside of, they have Kamara and Jeremy Grant, but I feel like Saloon could be a really good upside piece for Portland. Somebody who could possibly do a little bit of everything and replace Jeremy Grant at some point. Now, with Miami Heat, I've seen a lot of people go Isaiah Collier here. I've seen Jared McCain. I see Jacoby Walter. I've seen Devin Carter, right? But it's just like, they need big. They need a big, man. Like, you can't work around it. Like, this core right here at that center position for Miami, I feel like it's been what's been hurting them. Like, when they've gotten to the finals, like going up against a bigger team in LA in the bubble, like Bam was really the only big right there. Playing a Denver team, Bam Adebayo was really being your sole main big man. Even though he's so versatile and so good defensively, I feel like you need somebody else more assuring behind him. Like, especially when I'm looking at like the guards here for Miami. Like, who did I draft for them in my first mock? I drafted Stephon Castle. I had Stephon Castle sliding, and Stephon Castle went 4 for this one. So it's crazy how different the draft can be. But I just think when you're looking at the guards, it's like, I understand the fit with Devin Carter, but it's just like, you got to think, if this Miami Heat team is fully healthy, right? You have Terry Rozier, who needs the ball. Tyler Hero, who needs the ball. And then you're like, okay, down here, like, you have Nikola Jovic, who is great with the ball in his hands as an off-the-bench playmaker. So if you're running Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero in your starting lineup, you can have Nikola Jovic come off and facilitate off your bench with Jaquez. And, like, they just need more front court depth. Like, Kevin Love is really your second best big, like, in this rotation, if you classify him as a big. And I feel like Nikola Jovic can really blossom and take more of those guard reps. And with this, they still have a second-round pick to go out and get a later guard, which I feel like they could possibly do. It's a deep guard draft in terms of who they can get in the second round. That can still fit with what they want to do, but they have to go big here. And a big with some spacing, I think Helo Ware is the perfect pick here now that I'm thinking about it. Because he's a big that can play with Bam Adebayo with his spacing ability, can be a great athletic rim protector next to a Bam Adebayo. It just gives him a better option than like a Kevin Love or like a Thomas Bryant. I understand there's a lot of good guards here, but you still have Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero on this team. Two guys that can really need the ball a lot in their hands. And I feel like Isaiah Collier could be a good fit, but it's just like I feel like I like his fit on other teams. But I feel like the Miami Heat definitely need to address that backup big position. So now, with the Philadelphia 76ers, this is an interesting situation for what they have here. Man. So you're fitting next to Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. I'm thinking shooting. I like Devin Carter here. I think it's either between Jared McCain or Devin Carter. I like Jared McCain's shooting more, but Devin Carter more do-it-all kind of a guy, because you don't really know what's going to happen with DeAnthony Melton. He had that back injury to end the year. Like Kyle Lowry, you can bring him back, but I feel like at this point you can probably get something better just in the draft and more productive than what you're going to get from Kyle Lowry in this point in his career. I had Tristan Da Silva mocked here in my last one. I like the shooting of Jared McCain, but I feel like having somebody in Devin Carter that can do it all next to a Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid can be very, very promising, especially in the backcourt where you can run Tyrese Maxey and Devin Carter together. Lakers. Interesting spot for the Lakers. They're another team that needs to go big here. They're another team like kind of the same makeup that I've had for the Miami Heat. Like when they didn't have losing Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, you can say what you want about those guys, but they've lacked big man depth. I mean, Jackson Hayes hasn't really worked out. AD's really been the sole 5 on this team, and I feel like that's kind of hurt them as well when it comes to playing a Denver Nuggets team. Soon as AD gets into a little bit of foul trouble, I mean, you're running small at that point in a league where it's turning into you have to have big depth on your team. And I feel like you see Jared McCain here, Kyle Filipowski here, Steve Messi right here, like Zach Edey, but it's just like it sucks because I want them to go big, but I feel like with what you have and D'Lo possibly leaving, I think you need to find a replacement for him and just hope you can snag a big with this 56th pick, possibly coming off your bench if you don't go Bronny James route. But I feel like Jared McCain is just too good of a prospect right here with his shooting ability and the way he can space. I feel like he's the perfect guy to fit next to AD and LeBron. I just feel like you have to go Jared McCain here. Just a smart player with the ball in his hands. I feel like you cannot pass up on him at this point. Now with the Orlando Magic, got another interesting situation where you have Markelle Fultz out the door. Suggs, I feel like, has been the perfect 3 and D2 next to Paolo and Franz. You're pretty loaded at your big man spot. It's just really that guard position and adding possibly more shooting and more depth. I've seen Johnny Murphy here, but I feel like Jacoby Walter is the perfect fit here. Somebody that can come off your bench, give you good defense, and also be able to space the floor with his shooting ability. And he kind of fits that mold with what they're trying to build in Orlando. He can kind of be that Swiss Army knife guy that can kind of come off the bench for Suggs and kind of give you that same level of production coming in right away. And I feel like he can be good right away for an Orlando Magic team that I feel like is still a little bit away, but with adding a Jacoby Walter who can play the 2 or the 3 in my opinion, and then what they do add in free agency could be interesting. I feel like they're still in a realm where they want to make the playoffs again. Like they were really one bad half of basketball, one bad quarter away from really going to the second round of the playoffs this year with this young of a core. And then now we're on to Toronto Raptors. They're obviously going to extend Emmanuel quickly. With what I think of when I think of this, I think they need to really look at Jakob Poeltl. I think he could definitely be on the move this offseason. Just because he doesn't really fit this timeline anymore. I feel like these two and Bruce Brown and Jakob Poeltl will be possibly packaged. And it's like Emmanuel Quickley. Like you see Emmanuel Quickley, do you see him more of a 2 or of a 1? Interesting conversation to have. But I do think they need to address the big man position. And I think you could possibly go, like, you could even go with a small forward. Like, what are you, like, Gary Trent still is going to be a free agent. You still have Grady Dick, Jalen McDaniels, OK Abaji. So I think they need to go big here. Because do you want the more spacing around with Scotty Barnes? I'm going to go Kyle Filipowski. I feel like he has more spacing than Messi does. And I feel like he can possibly fit off of Scotty Barnes better because I feel like he has just a better, more scoring mindset around the basket and more of a spacing upside next to a Scotty Barnes. Cleveland. I mean, they can go a number of different routes. It's interesting to see what they do this offseason. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. Like, do they move off Jared Allen or Darius Garland? What do they do with Donovan Mitchell? They have a lot of questions, but I still feel like we're in a realm where they possibly just don't really see a market. I feel like you could trade Jared Allen, bring the other 3 back, and kind of reassess your roster and fit. But I do feel like you can add, if you replace Jared Allen, you can add something in free agency. But I feel like they need a 3. They need to address the small forward position. They need to go get somebody that can really fit what they want to do. It might be a reach. He's an older player, but this is a team that wants to win right now, be in the market to win again in the playoffs and possibly make another deep playoff run because they went to the first round, then they went to the second round. They're trying to get to the finals. This is a team that is great in the regular season, but they don't really fit well with those 2 bigs in the playoffs. Kevin McCullough, I feel like, is the perfect guy right here. Somebody who can do a little bit of everything, can give you some shot creation at that 3 spot, kind of way more under control than the Karis LeVert, who I feel like is just a bench spark at this point. But you can run Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Kevin McCullough. Then you have Max Strus, Isaac Okoro off your bench, and then you have, like, depending on what you want to do with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, which is going to be interesting this offseason. So depending on what you want to do with those guys, like, Kevin McCullough is the most NBA-ready guy you're going to get at this point in the draft, in my opinion, other than like Jalen Tyson, who I feel like Kevin McCullough gives you a little bit more still than Jason Tyson, especially in the scoring aspect. But looking at the New Orleans Pelicans, they're a team where they're in an interesting position, possibly looking to move off of Brandon Ingram. It's like they need a big, but it's just like the spacing with Missy. I like the athleticism. I think he's a better fit next to Zion athletically than the Zach Edey or Deron Holmes. But I feel like this is the perfect position for Isaiah Collier to go. You could say he's sliding. This might be too far for him to go, but with all the drafts and all the teams that picked ahead, I feel like this is a good spot for him. He can kind of come in and learn off of a CJ McCollum and a Jose Alvarado. He's going into a position where they have guys at his position that are still very, very good. And I feel like there's no real pressure on Isaiah Collier to be the lead guard right away next to a Zion Williamson because they still have CJ McCollum and a Jose Alvarado in that backcourt. And with what they do add in Brandon Ingram, like you see the DeJounte Murray rumor, so Isaiah Collier could be in a position to where like he comes in and is running the second unit for the Pelicans next to a Jose Alvarado. So now looking at the Suns, right? Suns, I feel like they're in a position where you see they need a guard. Obviously, they need somebody that can set the table. I've mocked like Tyler Kolek here, but I've kind of changed my mindset. I want y'all to walk with me real quick. I've kind of changed my mindset towards this pick because looking at it, I understand Missy and he's a rim running big that can play above the rim, be a lob threat. But when I'm looking at this Suns team, you have 3 guys that draw so much attention. I feel like they need somebody different, somebody that could be an X factor. And when I'm looking at Nurkic, I feel like I'm not the biggest fan of Nurkic, especially with the fit on this team and his lack of ability to protect the rim. They need to swing. They need to take a big swing. I got him going Zach Edey. I think Zach Edey is an X factor kind of guy. I feel like this is the perfect situation for him because think about them having Zach Edey, who is a good free throw shooter, so it's not a problem with you playing him late games. The worry is, it's the pick and roll defense. But I'm like, what are you getting at Nikola Jokic in the pick and roll anyways? Like, you're not getting anything better with Nurkic anyways in that pick and roll defense. And I feel like Zach Edey's rim protection can be super, super valuable for a Phoenix Suns team where you think of all the attention that Devin Booker and Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant are going to draw to them in the pick and roll, having a roller that is 7'4" in Zach Edey, somebody that you can legit give the ball in the post to, who has good touch, and you can't just hack at Edey because he's a good free throw shooter. So looking at this, he's somebody who can easily, I feel like on the Phoenix Suns with how much attention the big 3 are going to draw, can easily give you like 12 and 10 and be the starting big in his rookie year. I've seen nothing really but like negative sides of Zach Edey. He's not going to be athletic enough. But I'm like, on the Suns team, they need somebody that they can just get easy buckets off of. Like, Zach Edey is somebody who you run a pick and roll with Kevin Durant or Devin Booker, and he's just going to get open on the roll because they're going to either blitz Devin Booker or Kevin Durant, depending on what team they're playing and what situation they're in. But Zach Edey is somebody at this point where I would easily start him over Nurkic. I feel like his rim protection is better. His rebounding is going to be better. He's a better scorer at the rim, and he can still give you kind of the same handoff offense at the elbow, kind of like Nurkic is doing for you right now. And I feel like the defensive upside is still very much there on the Phoenix Suns team. I feel like he's in a position to where he can just really eat with the Suns. I feel like 12 and 10, I feel like it's small work. I feel like that's a floor because I think Edey walks in as a starting center if he gets drafted by Phoenix. There's nothing Nurkic is doing that I feel like Zach Edey can't come in and do. As an older player, somebody who's I feel like is NBA ready. I've heard nothing but negative comments about him. But I mean, like, he's a 7'4" big that can be a true X factor for Phoenix that is lacking that like paint scoring. And I feel like you can have a lineup where like there's so much attention on the big 3 to where Zach Edey can average easily a double his rookie year. I just feel like this is a perfect spot for him with all the spacing and shooting they do have already. Zach Edey, I feel like, is a home run pick for the Suns with what he can provide for them year one. Now Milwaukee. They're in a position where they got to think about post Brook Lopez. It's kind of the same deal with the Pelicans. It's like the spacing. Because you still probably have Brook Lopez. I've made trades where they move off of Brook Lopez, but with that $23 million, and you pair that with like Pat Connaughton to go out and make some moves. I feel like they're going to definitely be in the trade market for sure. But looking at this, they need I feel like they kind of need somebody right now that can be a connecting piece off that bench. This is where I got Jalen Tyson going. Somebody who is great off the ball. He can play off of Giannis and Dame really well. NBA body, he's ready to play. He can defend multiple positions. He can shoot the ball. He's a really Swiss Army knife, kind of in that Kevin McCullough range. To where if Kevin McCullough was here for the Bucks, I have him. If he's not there, you go Jalen Tyson. If you're the Bucks, you need somebody off your bench that's NBA ready, that can come off and give you good production. Now we're the Knicks to the back-to-back picks. You got to go big here. I think you need that assurance. I got you going Yves Messi right here for that assurance. You don't know Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson with his injury concerns. This can be another rim running big that Tom Thibodeau can turn into a great rim protector with his athleticism. And now with this pick right here, I doubt they keep both picks. Possibly trade both depending on who they want to go get. But when you're looking at that backup unit, I mean, Miles McBride, I feel like it's more of a 2 than a 1. I feel like he's at his best when he's looking to be aggressive. So it's like you got to go point guard here. I like Bud Carrington, but I feel like Tyler Kolek could be a real nice table setter for what this team wants to do. A true playmaker that is NBA ready. I feel like other than Nikola Topic, is the best playmaker in this draft. So like looking at that, I feel like Tyler Kolek is somebody who could really fit with what the Knicks want to do here. He can really be that playmaker off the bench that can run that second unit. Solid enough three-point shooter. You don't have to worry about that. So looking at the Washington Wizards with their second first rounder this year, this is where I have them going guard. You want your forward. You're probably getting rid of Kyle Kuzma. I've seen mock trades of them getting Josh Giddey, which I think is super, super interesting. I feel like they can really unlock what Josh Giddey could have been in OKC, but I just feel like he's better suited to be the lead guard with the ball in his hands rather than so much off ball. But saying in a realm where they don't go get like a Josh Giddey, I feel like you got to go point guard here. I feel like Bud Carrington is the perfect pick right here. Somebody that can play next to a Jordan Poole. Somebody that has great size at the guard position. I feel like he is the perfect no-brainer pick. And if you do, like say you go on the realm, because I've seen that be a common thing to where if you go trade with OKC to go get Josh Giddey, Bud Carrington is somebody who can come off your bench and still get his. I feel like he can be a great bench scorer. Somebody can do a little bit of everything. That's where I've seen him go is Minnesota right here. I've seen a lot of mocks where he goes to Minnesota in the backcourt with Anthony Edwards for the near future. But they're in a position where I had them go Carlton Carrington in the other mock, in the first mock. So he's not on the board here. You're looking at what this team needs. This team could use more shooting. Keyshawn George is an interesting player right here. Kind of gives them a little bit of everything. You could go guard here, but I think you can get one more solid year out of Mike Conley. Like, you still have Monte Morris. Like, they need something at that 3 spot coming off that bench. Kyle Anderson is a free agent, I believe. Yes, he is. So looking at that, I feel like they could go in a route where I think you go Keyshawn George here. I think he has the best defensive upside, and he's a good shooter to where he's not going to hurt your spacing right away. And I feel like on a Minnesota Timberwolves team with his defensive upside and how that culture has grown defensively, I feel like Keyshawn George could be the perfect guy right there to come off that bench and give them a little bit of spacing and kind of gives you what Kyle Anderson kind of gave you with just more of a scoring mindset and more spacing, in my opinion. So now with the Denver Nuggets, they just need somebody that can help them right now off this bench. I did see a lot of Jalen Tyson mocks here. God, they need somebody right now that can come in and just be a force for them. Kind of going down the list, it's really slim on terms of NBA guys that can come in right now, and really make a super, super big impact for them. Is this a spot where they take a reach? I like Ryan Dunn's defense. Kind of give them another point of attack defender off that bench, but that spacing, I don't know. Could it fit with a Nikola Jokic? Could he be like a slashing guy? But I feel like you can't really play him and Aaron Gordon together. I feel like that really hurts your spacing. Deron Holmes can kind of give them that backup big, but I feel like you still have Zeke Naji on the roster who you still have faith in, and you still have Nikola Jokic, obviously. Johnny Furphy, I feel like he's a shooter, but kind of gives you the same like Michael Porter vibes, where like if he's not making shots, it's like he's kind of liability defensively, kind of things like that. So it's a very interesting spot. Let me know in the comments where you go if you're Denver, especially with all these guys on the board. I think you go take a reach. I think you go with Shireman here, somebody who can come off that bench and is a proven scorer, a shooter that can space. Or do you go like a Harrison Ingram, somebody who can do a little bit of everything, could possibly play really, really well off of a Nikola Jokic? Trey Alexander, I feel like, is somebody who can play off Nikola Jokic really well. Cameron Christie is somebody who can also fill that role. It's really interesting to see where they go here, because I don't feel like Denver fits with a lot of these top guys. I know Terrence Shannon would obviously be a great fit with how he plays, but I know he has his off the court stuff, so we're not going to take him here. But I'm gonna go with somebody who can do a little bit of everything. It might be a little bit of a reach. Older guy. I feel like he's more NBA ready than a lot of these guys here. I'm going to go Harrison Ingram here. I think when you have him being able to crash the glass and play off of Nikola Jokic really well, he's somebody who can do a little bit of everything. And I feel like he's more NBA ready for next year and what the Denver Nuggets are trying to do, which is win an NBA championship. And I feel like he's NBA ready and ready to do that. So this one you got Nikola Topic if you're the Utah Jazz. So now you're kind of just looking at kind of best player available at this point. When I'm looking at this, you could really look at small forward depth, maybe some more spacing with what they already have. But I feel like they could easily go a Ryan Dunn here. I feel like Ryan Dunn could be a perfect piece for them right here, even though the offense is something that you definitely question. But do I like this? I feel like they don't have a point of it. I feel like they don't really have that point of attack defender, so I'm going to go Ryan Dunn there. And I feel like they have a lot of offensive weapons in Keontae George, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Nikola Topic, for I feel like you have a good rim protector in Walker Kessler. You can go an offensive lineup where you have Collins at the 5, Lauri at the 4, and then you run like a Ryan Dunn at the 3 who can be there for strictly his defense, and maybe Will Hardy can get that offensive upside out of him. So looking at the Boston Celtics, interesting position. Obviously in the finals, they're already loaded as is. Do you go with some big assurance with Al Horford? Like, what if they win a ring and Al Horford hangs it up? Like, right? Like, do they go and look at maybe a De'Ron Holmes here? I just feel like them adding some big depth with how injury-prone KP could be valuable to them. Like, I feel like Xavier Tillman is okay, but I feel like De'Ron Holmes can come in and give them a little bit more athleticism out of that front court spot. So this is the first round that I have. I mean, interesting. I feel like maybe you could say I reached right here with Dalton Connect, but I feel like the Pistons are lacking just any kind of scoring. You could say they can go add that in free agency, but the guys I've seen them mock to get in like free agency, it's like you get a Buzelis, but then you're like, I seen them getting like paying Tobias Harris a bunch of money, and like it's just I never see them getting like, and they don't need guards, so I feel like Dalton Connect could be that perfect scoring punch that they need, kind of what Bogdanovich was for them, but possibly a little bit better. Some other picks I reached on here, like Nikola Topic, I feel like that partially torn ACL is going to make him slide. I like Cody Williams' upside, his potential with a team like Portland, because they're not really looking to win right now. Kevin McCullough, I feel like is a great fit with Cleveland, and whatever they would do with their roster, Kevin McCullough is going to fit. He's gonna just fit. He's somebody that I feel like is going to stick on a lot of NBA rosters. And I feel like with whatever they do in this offseason, Kevin McCullough at that 3 spot can kind of give them that solidified 3 next to like a Strus off the bench with what they want to do. Magic and Jacoby Walter, I feel like he slides to them. This is a perfect home run pick for them, and depending on whatever they do this offseason. Devin Carter and Tyrese Maxey in that backcourt with a Joel Embiid could be scary for Philadelphia. I feel like he can kind of come in and replace the D'Anthony Melton and fill that role in perfectly. And I feel like his ability to crash the glass, when you really watch what 76ers in the playoffs, they just don't really have like, they just didn't have like a Josh Hart like the Knicks did, or DiVincenzo, 2 guys that are at that guard position that can really crash the glass. And I feel like he's a perfect fit for what they want to do in Philadelphia. He probably doesn't fall this far. But with how I kind of mocked this, I feel like he possibly could. Tristan Da Silva could be a little bit of a reach, but I feel like the Bulls could really use somebody more NBA ready. I feel like they don't really need a project. I feel like the Bulls are in a really, really good position to where he can almost be like your starting forward depending on what you do with Patrick Williams. So, and I feel like they're in a weird position with Patrick Williams where like they would probably be fine with like replacing him with a Tristan Da Silva rather than paying Patrick Williams, who I haven't seen enough to really warrant him giving him a bag. Some other picks here, like Donovan Clingan, home run pick. If the Memphis Grizzlies don't trade this pick and they do draft, if they can get Donovan Clingan, really love that fit. And if they can't get Donovan Clingan, go get Khalil Ware. He can kind of give you the same kind of things and maybe a little bit more spacing upside than Donovan Clingan. Tyler Smith to OKC. I feel like they're going to be in the market to get like more of a seasoned veteran big next to a Chet Holmgren on this already young team. Tyler Smith can be the perfect kind of Swiss Army knife that can give you 4 or 5 in the spacing they want. Off that bench. Buzelis, I feel like, can really grow and develop next to a LaMelo Ball and the Brandon Miller. New stuff that they got going on over there. Stephon Castle can kind of get his wish and kind of be that lead guard in San Antonio with a Trey Jones. I feel like his defensive upside and his defense at the guard spot with his height, I feel like can be great. Ron Holland, I feel like those two being like perfect guys that can play off of Wemby. Rashad Shea going to the Wizards, and I had the Wizards getting Bud Carrington. And if they do see mocks of Josh Giddey, like I said, it could be interesting there. See with like Minnesota, I think Keyshawn George is just a no-brainer pick right here. I feel like he gives them, what their young core gives them more upside. Jared McCain, perfect pick with the Lakers. I feel like his spacing and shooting day one, he's going to play right away in LA. He's like a perfect LeBron guy off the ball. The only team that I feel like, I love Rob Dillingham. I feel like he's the perfect Malik Monk replacement. I feel like he can come in and be super, super aggressive next to Sabonis and Fox. I feel like that's where he's going to be at his best. Kind of like in a situation where I talked about Deuce McBride in this video. Seeing like how I have Tyler Kolek go to the Knicks. I feel like Deuce McBride is more of a 2, but I feel like Rob Dillingham, you might not like his defensive ability, but you still have a Davion Mitchell. Keegan Murray's getting better defensively. They still have the ability to go out and make some moves this offseason. I feel like Rob Dillingham can be that Malik Monk replacement. Jalen Tyson's the perfect pick for Milwaukee and what they want to do. Like I said, if you're in this position, if you're the Bucks, if Kevin McCullough ain't there, you take Jalen Tyson. So, in this, Kevin McCullough went to the Cavs in this one. Jalen Tyson going right to the Bucks. I feel like that is a perfect fit. And with that, like the end of the first round, like these 3 teams, the Jazz kind of go best player available, but for the Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics, it's kind of hard to mock because obviously Boston's in the finals, and I feel like DeRozan Holmes just gives them more versatility at that 5 spot, especially if Al Horford does end up retiring, which I don't know if he does if they win. Harrison Ingram's an interesting pick. I could see you going a bunch of different routes of NBA-ready guys in that second round that Denver possibly reaches on. I see Bobby Klintman mocked it a little bit here for Denver. Could see that upside. I feel like he could fit next to Jokic. He does a lot of things really well. But I feel like Harrison Ingram could be that perfect 3/4 for them off that bench. That can do a little bit of everything for them. That isn't just a super, super raw prospect coming in. But looking at that, I mean, this is going to wrap up our second mock draft. We'll probably get at least 2 more out before the draft, kind of really thinking outside the box of what NBA teams could possibly do here. But that's all I have for this episode of Let's Talk About It. Thank you guys for tuning in to the episode. Hope to see you tune in to future episodes.